Okay, I'm making some gloves here. I'll go through the process of showing you how I'm doing this. So I've taken one glove and cut off the elastic. The other one I left it on. I've turned both gloves inside out. You can see the seam all the way around when it's inside out. So on both of them. The first thing I'm going to do is lay them on top of each other, and I'm going to attach them with strips around the perimeter. This is going to keep the glove suspended inside. It's going to keep it from turning inside out. So it's just going to keep them together, basically. So basically just going to take some extra material, cut like about a 1/2 inch wide piece. Make a bunch of strips. Some of them longer than others. We'll start with some that are about 1 inch long. And we're going to basically glue these as pieces that join the two halves. But we're going to put spaces in between them so that air can get from one side to the other. Because if you were to join them all the way together and you put the valve on one side, no air would get to the other side. So we're going to purposefully leave some gaps. Not huge ones, but just some periodic gaps. Just take it and flip it over. You're just going to kind of do this all the way around. Okay, now I've got all of these little strips joining the two halves. You can see I've got, little small gaps, 1/8 inch or so. Not too many, because if you put too many, then it won't really act as like two different chambers. You want to have just enough so that air can fill the other side. And then you don't want to come all the way down, because we're gonna fold this back here in just a second. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna shove one of these gloves inside the other. We want to work with the side that has no elastic on the outside. So to do that, we're going to open up that glove that doesn't have elastic, and we're going to kind of turn it over the glove, the rest of the glove, so that this thing basically has one inside the other, with the one that has no elastic on the outside. So you don't really have to get all that turned inside out just yet. Then I'm going to take, you could do a roll of tape, or I've got this little piece of tubing that I cut just the right length, just something to stretch this elastic apart. It's going to make this easier to glue the bottom. And before we do this, we're going to want to put an inflation valve. Now, there's going to be a right glove and a left glove, and you kind of want the inflation valve to be on top. So you're going to build one way, you're going to build the other way. So let's get the inflation valve. Okay, so I've got my inflation valve. It's a small one. It came from a beach ball. And I figured out where it's going to go. I'm going to make a little T to start with. And then I'm going to clip the little tabs off. So there's my T. And I'm going to kind of clip these little tabs to kind of make a circle. Then we're going to put this through and then glue it. start up on one side. I kind of fold this over so it's out of my way. Some glue. Get one side started. Work my way around. Kind of peek at it from the other side as well. Make sure there's no wrinkles. We don't want wrinkles because air will escape. Right. Keep things from sticking, I'm going to put a little bit of powder where I did the glue. All right, so now we are ready to start gluing it together. Put my little holder, and then instead of rolling it that way, like I've got it, I'm going to tuck it under and glue it. And then we'll come back and we'll do some strips. But one of the things that I like to do is on the edges, if there's a little factory seam, before I even flip it over, I'm going to glue that against itself, because otherwise air is going to come out of that little thing. So it's easier to, and then you got two of them. You got one on this layer, and then you got one here on this layer. So you could go ahead and do them both if you want to right now. Rub my hands together to get the glue off. Sometimes there's two layers to these little tabs. I shouldn't say sometimes, always. And so I try to get the needle of the syringe also between, because air could get out between as well as under. So there we go. Actually take that out for a second, press down. All right, so now those are joined. That'll be a little less of a problem here in a minute. Great. So now take this, fold it under. And once you kind of get it folded under, take and glue it. You don't want to go back too far because you don't want it to glue this to the other side. You just want to glue the little flap that you've tucked under so it doesn't go very far. And in fact, you want to check periodically by pulling the two layers apart to make sure that glue hasn't run back up in there, because you don't really want that. That's going to end up tearing a hole later if glue gets between the two layers past this little tab that you're flipping under. So you're just trying to glue that little tab. And we're going to come back and put a strip over this. So in case you have a hole, it's not a big deal. It's mainly just, this is just to help it be mechanically strong. Being folded under and then also putting a strip over it, it basically kind of makes a little T-shaped piece. So it's very, very strong. And you also have the double reinforcement against holes. So I'm gonna go to the other side, flip this over. I'm gonna come back and I'll do these very corners last. Since it's kind of sitting on my, stretched across my tube here. Okay, so I folded all the sides under, glued, and now I'm ready to take and glue some strips over that all the way around. What I did was I actually took my tube out before I had it stretched from seam to seam, and then I took it out and put it in 90 degrees to kind of come back and glue the areas that were on the ends. So now I'm going to take and start with a little bit of glue on the end and put it halfway across that, so 50% of it's on one side and 50% is on the other side of that seam that we just made. Then you can take and just kind of put glue on a couple inches at a time. And then press, kind of guide it, keep it across. Put lots of pressure down to get it to get into all, get the glue to get in all little crevices. And then we'll just keep working all the way around. Okay, I have finished going all the way around with the strip. I'm going to kind of put some pressure on it all the way around. I'm going to check it, see if there's any spots that still need some glue. Then I'm going to turn it inside out and I'm going to inflate it. I'm not going to go real tight just yet. I just want to kind of get everything pulled apart so that things don't stick. And that way the glue can dry. Because there's going to be some parts that are probably stuck together. Get it to where we kind of see the factory seams. Thumb is kind of the harder part because it's quite a bit smaller. Just do our best to get the very tip out. You only have to do this once. If you can get it most of the way, when you inflate it, it'll pop the rest of it out. But if you don't kind of work with it, then the inflation alone will not be enough to get it all out. I think that's about as far as it's going to go there. All right, I'm going to take it and inflate it. I'm not going to go real tight with it just yet because I want to kind of check some of the seams down here, especially at the bottom. Some of them are kind of still stuck. Just want to kind of pull them. You'll see where glue has kind of gone past the little flap that you were gluing and has glued the two layers together. But you can, if you kind of do this quick enough after you finish, the glue is not completely set up yet, so you can do this and get everything apart. Otherwise, if it sets for too long, then you're going to end up with a hole. Some of this stuff, if it starts to set up, you just have to go slower. Just kind of keep a little bit, kind of keep pulling, but not too hard. If you pull too hard, you'll get a hole. But if you just pull and give it some time, like that one, it will come apart. I think I got all, but there's one little one here, which in the corners I'm not quite as worried about because it's close to where we got things joined together anyways. So it's not going to be quite as much tugging. I'll just do my best. Get those pulled away from each other. All right. I think that's pretty good. Got a little bit of a wrinkle here. May or may not be able to get that out, but I'll let that sit, and we will check on it here in a little while and inflate it with a little bit more pressure.